Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn even more money. All in one place, and it's for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts, Q&A, and polls has let us be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. So download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Welcome back, Exes and T podcast fans. You guys, I'm really excited. I'm hoping you guys will be seeing the video portion of this. This is the first time ever that I have the opportunity to get to record myself. Hi, if you haven't seen me, this is me. But I'm really excited because, again, we have another Amway story with us today. And I just have to give the disclaimers, as always. We are not here to defame Amway, Worldwide Dream Builders. We're going to be talking about UR Association, which is fantastic because we get to learn more about it. But we're not here to defame anybody. All of the people that we were going to be discussing, their names have been changed, or we might just refer to them as sponsor or X person. So you very likely will not know who we're talking about. And if you do, don't send them any hate. Hey, if you're an adult and you want to join one of these organizations, you're more than welcome to. However, I would highly, highly recommend listening to stories like this because you're going to get a different perspective. And if you still want to go, hey, have at it, just proceed with caution. With that being said, you guys, I'm really excited. And I just want to thank every single person who has come forward and said their stories or come and told me, how much they support this podcast and how much they support all of the people coming forward. So thank you guys so much for your support. And I'm really excited because today I have the opportunity to speak with two people who are, I'm really excited because they're married. They're a couple named Josh and Rebecca. And they have a podcast of their own, which I'm really excited. But you guys, I love talking to couples. The idea that a couple can make it through Amway together is incredible. So I don't want to say the name of their podcast because I don't want to butcher the name. I'm going to let them say it, but I'm going to introduce Josh and Rebecca. Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
We are so excited to be on here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you guys. So please, I don't want to butcher the name of your podcast. So can you guys please tell us what the name of your podcast is and what it's about?
Absolutely. So the name of our podcast is Anilujah. That's Anilujah.
You might want to say that a little slower there, Josh. It took me forever to learn how to spell this, just so you know.
Right.
It's Anilujah.
And this is what we call a portmanteau. And what that means is you're taking two different words to make one new word to describe, to have a new meaning. The thing I always refer to is iPod and broadcast. Push them together, you have podcast. So ours is a combination between animation and hallelujah. Push them together. Anilujah. So each week we talk about one of our favorite, or maybe not so favorite. Sometimes it's suggested to us, or we have guests on that want to talk about their favorite animated movie or TV show, and we kind of make redundant analogies. And what that is it's communicating biblical themes of faith or the gospel through different things that we see in these animated movies or TV shows. Most of the time we do that, and sometimes we can't really pull anything from it, so we just have fun talking about a animated movie or TV show. We've been doing that for 2.5, 3 years almost.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be clear, we're Christians. Mm-hmm. So most of our conversations surround Christianity and these different animated movies and TV shows. We do talk about some other spirituality as well, though, if it makes sense to come up in conversation.
Right.
So, yeah. And we go through anything from Disney to anime. So one week we talked about Frozen, and there was another week we talked about Naruto. So if that interests you, we would love to have you over on the Anilujah podcast.
Yeah, and it's very often we don't shove like, Christianity or religion down your throat. We have a lot of listeners who are not of any particular faith or religion, and they just come for the animation aspect. And I may make a joke here, like my famous paraphrasing joke when we did the Prince of Egypt.
No, that wasn't Prince of Egypt. That was
Joseph King of Dreams.
Joseph King of Dreams,
which is our most listened to episode.
Which is so funny to me.
That was like right on the cusp of where our audio quality changed. You can hear it. It's like night and day between episode 9 and episode 10.
I love those. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really excited because I love that you guys have that level of faith. And what is fantastic about that is that we actually get into, when it comes to talking about Amway, is what your guys' interpretation of the way that they were pushing Christianity too.
Right.
And I've heard that so much from people who walked in as Christians, and they maintained their faith and they walked out as Christians. I'm one of the people who still has a little bit of beef with God right now just because of how everything works, but I'm sure we'll figure that out one day. But I think that your guys' podcast is very full of variety, which I love. But I think one of my favorite parts is I can listen to it with my child around, which mine, I can't always listen to with him around. But it's also inspired us to watch other movies, because I did not realize how many of the movies you guys have my children have not seen. All Dogs Go to Heaven, even just the first one, let alone the second one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, have we really not gone down this rabbit hole? So it's been really great. We've been able to kind of dive into those movies and have a little bit more family time that's more wholesome, if you will. So that's why I really like your guys' podcast. But I want to kind of switch gears. And you guys were in UR Association, right? Is it you and then R and then Association?
So they mainly say it as like URA or your association. I've heard it said many different, a couple of different ways throughout our time that we were in that line of the association.
Yeah, they focused, I think, more on calling it. Most of the time it was URA. It took me I think 2 conferences to go to before I realized it's actually your association, as in this belongs to you. It's your association. It's all for you, kind of a thing.
Biggest lie ever.
Yeah, that was, so I was like, oh, okay. I'd heard it URA.
Right. I didn't know it was your, that's great. I'm now learning something new about it. But so you guys were in URA, or I guess your association. And I'm really excited to kind of learn what your guys' journey was in that aspect of things. But I wanted to know, were you guys together prior to URA? Were you guys married before you guys were in URA?
Yes, we were.
Barely.
So, barely, yeah. We'd only been married since October. And then I think October 2017. Mm-hmm. And then in 2018, what was it? January, February, I think?
I think it was February that we got involved, because it was right after we had our dog. Got our dog in January. So she was still baby puppy when we joined.
Wow. See, that's why I think that talking to couples, especially the ones who are married before and after, is amazing, because that shows that it's possible to make it through these organizations. I don't want to say unscathed, but at least you guys can one, have this common trauma together, and 2, you guys actually made it through. I'm always so saddened by just how many people end up, they either get married at the urging of these organizations, they're married prior to, but they don't make it out together. And it's really, really sad to me, because I unfortunately do. I speak to so many, and mostly it's women who either their partner is still in, or they both got out and they just separated. And it's all because of the way that this organization treated them as humans. And so I just want to put emphasis on the fact that I love that you guys are here together as a couple, just to show the people that it is possible, you guys. Don't think that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get divorced because I was in Amway. No, that's not the truth. But with that being said, how on earth did you guys learn about URA?
So Rebecca, because it all started with you and one of your contacts. So you'll start us off.
It did. Before we go into that, though, I did want to say, so Josh and I are a little bit unique in that right before we got married, we actually went to pre-engagement counseling. And when we went into counseling, we specifically wanted tools on how to communicate with each other.
Yes.
And that was so invaluable when we first got married, and particularly while we were in Amway. But it was learning
because
how
there were some testing moments.
it was very testing. Yeah, it was a lot. But I think because we had learned some of those techniques to communicate, and we felt like we were both a safe place to communicate those things, that really helped to strengthen that relationship. So if you're in a similar situation, I would highly recommend going to see a counselor. They are fantastic. I say that also because this is the profession that I'm currently going to school to go into. So I'm in my master's program for counseling, but they will help you with some of those techniques. They will help you work through these traumatic events that so many people go through with all of this. And it's a trauma, and it is okay to get help for something like this. I'm just obviously super passionate about all of that. And particularly on a podcast where we're talking about trauma, I think it's really important just to bring that up for a moment.
Yeah. And for our listeners who are going to be watching and listening to this episode, you're going to get to see Josh fired up. Which you don't get to see often on our podcast.
Josh does get fired up when talking about Amway. So.
And I hate using that word because every time it's like, get fired up. So you're just going to get see it.
Yeah.
Not in the way that they intended, funny. But yeah.
Right. I just want to say really quick too, I think that Rebecca, your point is fantastic. I love that. And what I love about it is that it's professional counseling.
Yes.
It's people who have actually gone and gotten an education for this and are qualified. Not your stupid upline telling you that the guy needs to speak with the guy, the woman needs to speak with the woman. You guys don't talk to each other. You talk to your upline and they figure it out themselves. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about real professionals who, I think you're right. I think that does offer an advantage because you walked in with the professional tools versus upline giving these really it's just bad advice. They are not qualified to give the advice that they were giving. But yeah, no, we're huge proponents of therapy. Counseling is fantastic. I always tell people, if you haven't, please go, because it can be so, so helpful and eye-opening. And at the very least, you can go there and I had a therapist, I'm not even going to lie. I would walk in and just spew curse words. And he was like, all right, so I'm glad that you feel comfortable enough to do that here. Are you okay now? I'm like, yes, sir, I'm good. And then we would have the conversation. And that's just the rapport that I had built up with him that really created that level of trust. That's not saying you have to go curse out your therapist. I'm just saying you can find somebody to talk to.
Absolutely.
But that's amazing. I'm really excited that you are going for your master's to be a counselor. We love it. Yeah. And was that actually, so kind of speaking towards being in URA and being in Amway, were you in school when you guys were approached to start URA?
No, we were not in school.
No, we were just we just had our regular full-time jobs.
Yeah, we had both graduated high school, so we're in our 30s right now. We graduated college around 2012 or so. So yeah, we've been in the working world for a little bit in that cursed job.
Yeah, or what they say, say. Some people have said, you don't want a JOD, a jackass, a boss. Yeah.
I did. That was a new one. I hadn't heard that one, Josh.
Yeah. You're just over broke. The thing that's gonna basically kill you eventually. Right. They made it sound like such a nightmare, which is crazy to me. But one actually thing that a lot of people say that I've heard is after leaving Amway, sometimes they do have a hard time loving their job again. Yeah. They've stayed in the same career and they go back and they're like, I hate this still. I used to love this and now I hate it. And it's like trying to find that fire within them to find the motivation as to, what they loved about it beforehand. And in your experience, when you guys were in URA, did they talk negatively about the idea of going back to school or being in college in general?
I don't remember about school. I do. The only reason it would matter is because that's more debt. And they're like, debt is evil. You don't want debt, which is ironic, honestly, because so many people like would get themselves into debt to like continue to do the business. But yeah, it was, and maybe it's just because that wasn't, we were past that, that they didn't talk about it. Yeah. But they definitely talked about, not buying a house. It was like, don't buy a house. Why would you get yourself into more debt? Always buy used cars, which I do believe in. Buy used cars because it's much better. But yeah, they really harped on, don't get yourself into debt and spend basically frivolous money unless it's on the business.
Well, your anyway money, right? This somehow, some way, this anyway money that you have that, I mean, sure, I think everybody had anyway money that, like, now that we know the term anyway money, right? But for some reason they had us convinced, at least for me, they had me convinced. They're like, oh, well, you're just going to switch your shopping from, I was spending maybe $50 on at Target a month, maybe, to what would become $600 with Amway, which is so wild to me. And so, okay, how did you guys find out about URA? Because I'm so curious.
Yeah, sorry. Back to that.
It's okay.
So I had a friend from college actually who she moved here with me. She was my roommate when I moved back home. And so we had been good friends for a while. As she called me up. She had done this to me before. God bless her.
Double dipper.
We're still friends, by the way. She got out of Amway. And yeah, it turned out great. But so she called me up, was like, hey, I got this business something. I don't even remember. Honestly, I've kind of tried to like push out a lot of those memories. So like bringing them back up, I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. But so she called me up. We went to the meeting, the first meeting, which was just a phone call with Josh and I both, I think. Either that or it was just me. I don't remember.
I think it was maybe just you.
Was it? Yeah, that tracks. And then we ended up meeting at the Embassy Suites, which is where everything happened, the Embassy Suites. And so we met up there with the upline.
Yeah, and we'll call them Andy and Kate for the purposes of this episode.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, they were both there. I think it was just Andy, but yeah. So we chatted, and it was like we thought that it was this. At least I did. We thought it was some sort of like mentoring program because that's how they sell it, as if it's a mentoring program. And I was like, well, cool. I mean, like, I have business ideas. I'm creative. I want to accomplish things in my life, and that's really neat. And so we continued in the conversation. They gave us the book, The Compound Effect by Darren
Hardy.
Darren Hardy. Yeah. My gosh, that book. Ugh. So they're like, okay, can you read this in a week and come back and we meet again? And we were like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So we did. We read the whole thing. And went through the next process. Anyway, it was like 3 more meetings, and finally got to, and still had no idea what this was. I think I even very pointedly asked, because I was like, this is a multi-level marketing company, isn't it? I didn't say that to them directly, but Josh and I, we had conversations. We were like, this is totally what this is, right? Right? We weren't quite convinced until we went to the meeting. And went to the meeting. Finally, it all came out, and they had done so much preparation that by the time we saw the proposal, then it was like, wow, actually, this seems like it could work. So I had previous experience with multi-level marketing companies, both with Mary Kay, which my mom bought a bunch of products. I grew up with 2 younger sisters, so we always needed makeup and skincare products. So it was like, yeah, we can do that. And then I ended up doing Arbonne, but it was like I never went to the conferences and the meetings and all of that. It wasn't all in. Amway was the first time that we were all in for me.
It was the first time I was on for anything related to that because I had no prior experience with an MLM.
Right. And so my prior experience, it wasn't a bad experience. So it was like, okay, well, this actually seems, I had some questions because I was like, the reason it didn't work for the other ones is because their products are so expensive and nobody wants to buy them. Like it just, at least for the makeup companies and things. And it just doesn't make sense. But this was like cleaning products. It's like, oh, well, this is like everyday cleaning products. Okay. So it just seemed to make a lot more sense. But so yeah, I ended up asking those questions, and anyway, that's kind of how we got in.
Wow. I also had experience with Arbonne.
Yeah.
My mom had Mary Kay as well. I think that for a hot minute, she was like, I'm going to sell this. I'm like, I'm like a kid. Maybe I'm like 13 at the most. And, we had them around the house for a while, and that was the extent of it. And no shame to her. I wouldn't want to sell them either. But with Arbonne, same thing. I was told that there were meetings at this lady's house who was supposedly really wealthy, and she lived in the wealthier side of town. And it didn't really work out for me to ever go to these because I was working and I had a small child, and it just didn't make sense. But I didn't have a bad experience. I just thought it's just not for me. I'm just not into this. Like, you're not all in. But you're right. Amway, the way that these different LOAs, they pitch it to you. It's like, no, this is different. This is not like those little things. This is a mentorship opportunity. It just happens to have the business attached. And how many meetings do you guys think you went to before you actually found out that it was Amway? Like a duration of time between maybe when you first sat down to maybe this, I guess, did you guys call them board plans or info sessions?
I think it was info sessions, if I remember it correctly.
I just remember business meetings, but I don't remember exactly what they called them.
The time because they really prided themselves on their vetting process, so what they refer to it as. And it was so you have the phone call, you have the menu where they give you the book, and then we all meet up again, and they're like, if I can get you a seat. I'm like, no, it's a certainty.
We believed it though.
Yeah.
At the time when now we don't, obviously not.
Right.
You saw behind the curtain.
And then after the info session or business meeting, we then were called out to another meeting with our upline or what would be our upline.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you sign the deal or the contract or whatever to become an IBO or independent business owner.
So all of that though was probably
a few.
Was
weeks,
that 3 weeks?
3 or 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it had to have been somewhere around then.
Wow. So for 3 weeks, and again, no shame because I did this too, but just to add perspective to everybody, this is 3 weeks that you guys really don't even know what's going on outside of you think that it's something. Because I thought too, I was like, I don't know what this is, but they make it sound exciting, and I'm in a traumatic spot in my life. So this, what could go wrong, basically? And it's 3 weeks of time that you're invested. You're giving your time. You're doing all these different things because you want to earn whatever it is that they're offering to you, and you have no idea that it's Amway. And this really adds to that. I'm going to use the term grooming, where they really do. They do a great job grooming the people that they bring through this quote process to get you really excited. So by the time they drop the Amway bomb, you're already so infatuated by it that you don't even care that it's Amway if you had heard of Amway before. And had you guys heard of Amway prior to this?
I had not. No.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's been around since the 50s?
It's
Yeah.
like the world's best kept secret. I don't know how they do it, but
Well,
people are
yeah.
still, they have no idea what it is.
Yeah, and then I've heard it referred to as like the granddaddy of all MLMs because it has been around for, 50 plus years. And yeah, you're right. It is the world's best kept secret because people are, no shame because I've heard a lot of people, oh, well, how could you fall for that? You have to be stupid to fall. No, very intelligent people. It's, you're conned into this basically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. They're very, very smart people who get trapped into MLMs and cults in general, which I would say that MLMs are very cult-like. It's a little bit cultish. There's a podcast that I listen to sometimes. It's called Cultish. It's a good podcast. But I'm like,
I love
yeah,
it.
Have you heard of it before?
I haven't heard of that one, but I've heard of A Little Bit Culty, which is Survivors of the Nexium Cult. Have you guys heard of that one?
Wait, Nexium. Okay. Is that skincare or is that the one that there was like a Netflix documentary about?
Yeah, it's like they refer to it as like a sex cult or something.
Yep, exactly. Keith Raniere was the founder, I guess, if you will, of Nexium. And I binge watched The Vow was what it's called, where they kind of document taking him down. I had COVID at the time, so I had time on my hands and I watched the whole thing. It was great. But actually I watched another one where they talk about Keith Raniere got some of his ideas from these Amway LOAs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what Nexium was, it was just a it's just like worldwide except for no Amway attached to it. It's just the self-development aspect of things. And he built it from the ground up. And you're very right. Very, very intelligent people are getting into these organizations because it doesn't matter. They would always say from Yale to jail, but it doesn't matter like education wise, like where you're at. And you think that, oh, I would never fall for something like this. But the thing is it's not that you fall for it. It's the fact that you have these people who are taught, who are basically like media trained, if you will, and taught how to speak to us. And that's why when you go through something like the BITE model, Stephen Hassan's BITE model, you learn that all of these things are calculated. And I don't think my sponsor was by any means the brightest bulb in the box. I actually hate him. And I say that purely because he was an abusive husband to his wife. And his wife is like one of my best friends. And the fact that our upline like co-signed that's why I don't like them. But with that being said, he was coached. I mean, you're talking about years of just audios and board plans or info sessions or rallies, or you're talking about all this input and that's all you're listening to. Of course, you're going to regurgitate it. Anybody can learn how to do that. So when you have somebody that you trust telling you all these things, it just makes sense. And then you're right. Like you didn't know what Amway was, which is always the prime candidates for these people, because when you don't know what Amway is and you don't know the negative reputation it has. And then also, did they tell you guys not to look up what Amway was, or did they tell you guys that you're going to find only negative things? And how did they really go about that part of it?
Yeah, most definitely. So they said, oh, you can look at anything. You're going to find positive, negative on anything. But you need to search on the Better Business Bureau, sites like that, not like Dark Horse 85, who's, typing stuff about Amway while in a bologna sandwich in his mother's basement, which for the majority of Redditors, I don't think that's their outlook. But yeah, they would say, yeah, just stay away. Because that's not, there's a difference between search and research.
Which, I mean, to be fair, that's fairly accurate. But at the same time, I don't know. I just have to wonder about the Better Business Bureau. Like, it's all corporate guys talking to each other, making deals, and you playing the business game. I know what that looks like. And that's probably what's going on and why they have such a good reputation in the Better Business Bureau. I actually never looked it up, but I assume. So, I don't know.
To my understanding, I think they have to, allegedly that they pay to be on the Better
See?
Business Bureau,
Yeah.
just to have a status on there. And one thing that I learned from this girl on TikTok, if you guys haven't seen her, please go check her out. She's called the Anti-MLM Kid. She was raised in Amway. Her parents were diamonds. She doesn't say her name, their name, or what line of affiliation they were in, but she has a lot of great perspective. And she made a point that I really didn't make the connection to, but when she said it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So they always talk about that the FTC had not deemed Amway a pyramid scheme in whatever year that they were being investigated. What they failed to mention, and I guess maybe they would consider this the tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, they had a lot of political connections at the time. They still do. And that was only for Amway. These lines of affiliation have not been investigated at all. I don't know. I'm sure it's the connections that they have, but the business tool side of things has not been investigated by the FTC. So there's really no saying whether what they're doing is legal or illegal, but I think they definitely teeter on the fine line between, is this immoral or is this illegal? And Roberta Blevins too, the Life After MLM, she has fantastic episodes too, about the Amway Tools business and the history of it. In fact, she has one where a historian comes on and talks about the tools business and how really nobody was making money in Amway. All of their money was coming from selling these at the time, which were tapes, which I guess evolved to CDs and are now these crazy, stupid, expensive apps, which they don't tell us that they're making money on, which is a question we can go to later because I always ask people towards the end. But when you guys finally got signed up for URA, what was your guys's, I guess I'm going to use a trigger term here, mindset at the time? And what was the expectation that you guys were to meet every month, maybe PV wise, and how many meetings you were supposed to go to?
Yeah, it was like every meeting. It was on Thursdays. It was like Thursday evenings every week, which, by the way, it was at the Embassy Suites. So we had
everything was there.
Right. And we had to pay to go to these meetings, basically.
Right.
It
Your
was
first
like
one was free, and then
Right.
you had to pay after that.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like $5 or $6 and per person. So for a couple, it was like $10 or $12.
$10 every single week. That's a lot. It adds up.
Now, mind you, these meetings start at 8:00. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't see other people in business having meetings at 8:00.
Not every week.
No, not.
No, not every week.
And they would run from 8
It's like 8 to 10.
8 to 10, unless if there was a night owl that we qualified for, and it was almost midnight.
Yeah.
So 2 to 4 hours sometimes.
Yeah, or if the head guy,
Yeah, the big dog.
in URA came to town because
we'll refer to him as the tennis guy or the coach.
The coach, that's a great one. Yes. He would fly in on his private plane and come to speak to everyone. All worship him. Oh my gosh, the coach, he's here. And you're like, okay, calm down.
I know that feeling. I do. Whenever the big crown guy, I'm sure you guys have heard of him. The crown guy. I feel like everybody knows him.
Yeah.
God, everyone would flock. Oh my God. Our upline would say, if he's within 3 to 6 hours, you need to be there, basically, which is so freaking crazy to me. But I'm still like shocked by this idea that you guys were paying $10 a week to go to this. Like, we would have our board plans, is what we called them, and like we would have them from anywhere from somebody's stuffy basement, or we were canned sardines in somebody's like tiny living room in their apartment. Maybe we're in an apartment like clubhouses, churches, if people had connections in the church. These were all free to us, but we had many, many that we had to go to. The ones that we paid for were, we called them rallies. They were once every quarter. So a diamond from another line of sponsorship, which is so odd to me now looking back, because there's this no cross-lining rule. Like, we would have to listen to them, but we would have to counsel upline before we could apply anything that they would say. So realistically, they're just there because they're getting paid to speak. I'm going to say allegedly on that, even though A number of sources have indicated that they do. I know for a fact that they get paid on the business tools. I'm just going to say allegedly getting paid to speak, but I believe that they do. But those were $10 for the first half. The first half would be like a training session, and then the second half we would bring guests to, and that would just be one big like board plan or info session, basically just a diamond showing the plan. And we pay for those. Those are now, so that's $20 for one Sunday. Now they're $40, and each person in the couple had to pay that what now is $40. So it's $80 for a couple to go to this. And then we had the major functions, which were, I think, anywhere from $150 to $250. Those were also once a quarter, which I'm sure you guys had those major functions as well. But this idea that you paid $10 a week, oh my gosh!
Well,
they really are bad over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
this was for our group too,
right,
in our area. So I don't know if other groups did it differently. Maybe they did meet in people's
like basements or living
wherever.
Rooms, yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, this was our group. It made it seem more legit. I gotta say though, it did make it seem more like, oh, okay, well this is something.
True, and I know it doesn't cost that much to rent out a ballroom in the Embassy Suites.
Yeah,
because you have to think about, $5 a piece times 20, 30, 40 people, however many people were in that Nashville sector, that's more than the cost. So they're pocketing some of that extra, for sure.
Surely. Which is just like...
And it's all cash, right?
I think it was all cash.
Yeah,
it had to be cash.
Yeah, no credit. Yeah, I don't think because we would always have to make sure, did you go to the bank? Get the withdrawal so we could cash it. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, so that was the meeting side, and then we were expected to do 300 PV a month.
Yes.
Right? To which 90% of that we were paying ourselves in all of these household goods that we needed with our tiny 900 square foot apartment. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's $1,000 a month.
Yes.
300 PV if you were to do the whole thing yourself. But even 90%, I bet that's still close to $900 a month. And were they preaching you're buying from your own store instead of focusing on the retail side of things?
Yes,
oh yeah, we even
absolutely.
read there was a book that they had that talked about that. What was it called?
Oh,
you guys probably read it too.
Prosumer or something.
Oh, Prosumer Power.
Yeah.
We read that one too.
Yeah.
Oh man, which is so crazy. Okay, so this is I guess maybe one of those like technical types of questions, but were they having you guys list 50 PV and just like making up a customer and saying like you sold 50 PV to whoever you put in there? Or how did that work for you guys?
There was an instance, I remember this specifically, is that our uplines, Andy and Kate, wanted us to make sure we get our first, bonus check. And they said, what's your guys' like login? And it's like, it's this. And they're like, okay, well, we just want to make sure that you get your bonus check. So they went in and made up the customer to assign like one of the orders that we had placed. Go to that made up customer. Because
I do not remember that.
Yeah, because
you have good memory.
Because how the PV was calculated, in order for you to get your bonus check, you had to assign a certain amount to a customer, kind of just all the IVO.
Well, they do that for legal reasons because that means that that really would be a pyramid scheme. If all the people were actually buying it,
right? Because you're doing what some people refer to as garage qualified or inventory qualified. It's just you're buying it all yourself.
Yep. I know, which is funny that I found not too long ago. So when we moved, we still had one bottle of the multi-purpose cleaner. And so we're still using that multi-purpose cleaner. And I'm like, I don't want to waste it. We already have it. Yeah. But every time I use it, I'm like,
Maybe we should just maybe we should tear off the label and just put another picture in there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow.
But maybe I'll make a label that says Scamway and like, oh yeah, that was that time. Yeah.
Do it. That would be dope. But yeah, so that's one thing that they would emphasize in our organization too, was that we were buying everything. Everything was all us. We were buying from our own store. In fact, our my diamond, who would become my diamond, I call him the club owner. He would always say, "I'm terrible at sales. This is not sales. This is not what that is." And they would say, "Sell it to your mom, your grandma, your goldfish. You just put it in." We would basically kind of go in. They would teach us how to basically assign 50 PV and say I sold it to my mom, when realistically my mom didn't buy it. I did. I was spending all 200 PV myself. And that's what at the time that they were really, really preaching. And that's the way that they were able to, I guess, legally do what they were doing. Because you're absolutely right, Rebecca. If we all just bought our product, it would just be, a pyramid scheme. But they can't have us doing that. They can't have us making them look bad. So nowadays what they're doing is Amway requires, I think it's like 60 to 70% verified customer volume. So now customers actually have their own account, and it has to be a valid phone number, a different email address. But the upline are still under the radar, telling them that they got to do what they got to do to get their now, what is the standard 500 PV is their standard of excellence now there. Wow. It's $1,500 a month. And they have to assign 70% of that to whatever customer they have, and they only really need to have one. So it's still same concept, but finding different loopholes around it, allegedly, per the people who I have on, who were in recently, like this year.
That's crazy. 500 PV.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
500 PV is the standard over at
I
Worldwide.
cannot imagine.
That's a lot. They were upping it. I think when we were getting out, Josh.
Yeah,
but I don't remember. I don't think it was up to 500.
No, maybe like
a lot.
Maybe like 400.
I think it was 350.
350.
I think they had just bumped it up to 350. Yeah,
that's so much money. That's like an expectation that you should never have for anybody. There's no way that somebody should be expected to spend $600 a month on product, let alone $1,500. Like, that's a whole rent payment for somebody, depending on what city they live in. And I know in PDX, that's like half a rent payment anymore. Like, it's crazy to me that they have these expectations for people. And so you guys are in the business now. You guys are doing your 300 PV. You're going to these weekly meetings. When do you really start to notice some red flags? Like, what starts kind of popping up and you're like, I don't feel right about that?
That is definitely Josh's area. He was the one who brought everything up.
Right. So
you should talk about the big board.
Oh gosh, the big board. Fond memories. So before I get into that, I've always been very skeptical. I've always been taught, hey, don't take anything at face value, which is why I'm always inquisitive about a lot of things. I want to make sure I have all the info, all the facts. So when we were going to these meetings before we became involved in the business, when they didn't tell us, exactly what it was, that was a little bit of the red flag. But when sometimes you date somebody and you see some little red flags, but you're so infatuated with them, you kind of push them aside. That was kind of like me. I was okay. Well, maybe there's a good reason why they're not telling us what it all is right now, and so I'll just store that little voice away. So it was our second conference. So I'm trying to remember. So there's spring leadership. There's one in the summer, I thought, because there's spring leadership, FED, winter conference.
There's a summer one for you guys. I just don't know what the name of it was for URA. We called ours Family Reunion. But I think for URA, it might have been something different.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was different. I remember hearing the Family Reunion thing, but yeah, we did call it something different.
Yeah, so we'll just call it summer conference. So we went to summer conference and we had card pulled and all that stuff.
Which we were expected, by the way.
Yes.
To begin driving from the Nashville area is where we're located. and we were driving. It was between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. So we drove all through the night. Like we left, everyone was like caravanning up there basically through the middle of the night after having like worked a whole 8-hour day at our jobs. And we were expected to drive all the way up there through the night. Crazy.
Yeah, that's like, what was it, like 12, 14 hours maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like 10 to 13 hours that we were driving.
Oh,
I'm surprised we
were
didn't
you
die on the road.
expected?
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
yeah.
Were you guys just expected to hop into the conference pretty much right after that, or were you guys able to sleep a little bit at least?
We could sleep a little, thankfully, but it was not much, I don't think. I think it was like...
No, because right when you got there, it's like, hey, we're going to have a little meetup here in like, 45 minutes or whatever. Mind you, we just got there, barely checked into the hotel room that we're sharing with 3 other people, 3 other couples.
Yep.
But before we get into that, we were always encouraged to get, this big whiteboard. We had heard on different audios that, oh yeah, you get this big whiteboard, you can pick it up at Home Depot. Well, what need do we have for a whiteboard? So, oh, you could write your dreams and you can practice, getting your own board plan when you become, I think Arrow was the equivalent of the Eagle for your versus Worldwide Dream Builders.
Okay, yeah.
And so we didn't have the car big enough. We had to borrow her mom's car, Becca's mom's car, to fit this big, huge whiteboard in.
I mean, it was like 7 feet whiteboard, 7 foot whiteboard. Yeah. It's huge.
And nailing, and we're in the apartment, so we're not really supposed to be nailing things into the wall, but we did.
We did. The longest wall in our entire apartment is where our TV was.
Yeah.
And we had to move our TV to the side, which they were trying to encourage us to just get rid of the TV completely.
Wish I wasn't about that.
No, Josh did not allow that. No. Oh, man.
It's like, that's my only escape from whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
This big board. I'm just picturing this giant board. But you're right.
It was a giant ass board. Yeah.
But they do. You're right. I can co-sign this because our organization did the same thing. Get a board at your house that you're eventually going to use for your own board plans, but also have a dream wall. Like, post all your dreams. Have it right there in front of you. I found a picture recently of what mine looks like. I have to post it on Instagram because I even got these, like, what I thought at the time were these cute little, like, diamond, like, shaped things to put on my dream board. I thought I was like going there in a heartbeat. Well, it was really embarrassing to look at now.
Because we think we're, pardon my French, we think we're the shit when we're doing all this stuff. I mean, because I'm better than everybody else. I'm an IBO, and gosh, this is Josh fired up. In case for those of you listening and watching, but So summer conference. The male spouse, is expected to get to the morning session early. Now,
we're talking like 5 a.m.
5 a.m. Now, I'm already waking up at 5 a.m. during the week for my job. My weekend is to sleep in a little bit. Yeah. But no. So we had to be there I had to be there 5 a.m. Now, again, this is Baltimore. Not the best place to be in the area that we had the conference in, outside at the crack of dawn.
There are people who would like literally camp out all night.
Yes.
And you're like, that is dangerous.
Yeah. What
oh gosh. Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Not all night, but like my upline because they would, I don't know if they use the term for you guys, but they would say be front row fighters. Mm-hmm. And I was a single at the time. So I did not have that privilege of having a significant other to go be there. Shout out to all the wives whose husbands did that for them. But I was like, hey, I'm dedicated. I want to go. So we would get, and we're talking same thing. It's a very, very sketchy area. So I'm from Portland, Oregon. I don't know if y'all know much about Portland, but Portland's wild. And we're downtown Portland. That is not a place that I go ever, let alone at 2 a.m. 2 in the morning, the doors open at 8. We are there at 2 in the morning.
Wow.
And I would get in trouble because I'd bring like bedding with me just to like sleep. The police were like, no, you can't do that. You guys can be here. You can only sleep if you're on top of something. So my stupid upline, Robert, he got this inflatable thing, which was actually pretty dope. I wish I had one. But I ended up bringing like a chair, and I'd be like, have a kinked neck the entire function. But I was there. I was a front row fighter for Lord knows what reason. But yeah, I was one of those people.
I mean, we couldn't really even get to the front row because the front row at our conferences, they
reserved it for the
silvers.
No, they reserved it for the arrows.
No, because
right?
The
first few rows.
The first few rows were arrows, and then in the back was silvers, and then the lowly peasants. IVOs were in the back of that, and then 12Q qualified were at the tables.
Yes, yeah, the like almost emeralds.
No, they're
the platinums.
Platinums who have like net qualifications
yes.
all year, and I think maybe rubies. Because only emeralds and diamonds were behind the curtain.
Yes.
Onto the
fabled behind the curtain.
Yeah, gosh, I remember the video message that they sent us on the app, where they were showing us the kind of like the auditorium that we would be in, and they're saying, "Oh, okay, you're probably gonna be sitting right here." It's like, or you could be sitting right here, at the table, have your notebook, writing all the good knowledge down, or maybe behind the curtain. Everything wants to be behind the curtain. I'm like, that's no.
It's pretty crazy.
But
can you imagine what's going on back there?
No.
Like, I always wonder what happened back in the diamond rooms. Like, there's got to be some. I don't know. I'm gonna go a little bit of conspiracy theory here, but I think there's like, you guys ever heard of like this alleged Mark Zuckerberg's like a lizard person? I just imagine the diamonds have some sort of other like self that they are in the back, and then they come up front. They're like, "You guys can be free too," and then they take their lizards in the back. I don't know. That's just my expectation of what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely always thought it was like they're back there and they're like, "Oh God, we have to do this." Like they're all not smiles, like angry. Why are we here?
That too.
Then again, they actually get sleep, so.
Yeah, because anybody who was arrow and above, you could just walk in at any time, and they would scan your little QR code and say, "Oh yeah, you're an arrow. Oh yeah, you're a platinum." Say, "Yeah, just walk on in. You don't have to stand in the line like these other bozos."
Crazy. So, what was the point, Josh, for you? When did you really start realizing this is not good?
So. It just felt very cult-like about the summer conference because it had been week in and week out of just going to the same business meeting, and it's same crap. It would be different people speaking, but they had a rotation of they would get up there to speak, and the wife would usually tell the personal story, the glitz and the glamour, and then the husband would come up and get the nuts and bolts of the meeting, talking about the real means behind it being Amway and whatnot. And I just started thinking of them like little things. It's like, well, why are we here every week when we don't have a prospect and we're staying an extra hour to do business training, which was just more motivational talk than anything else. And so the wheels just, started turning. And it's like, well, and the fact that they don't want us to, have like Amway products during the info session, the first half of it, we can't have Exes, we can't have any of the bars or chips or anything like that. Which was
really funny, I gotta say. So we did it differently at our meetings. They did the business proposal thing first. And then once all of the new people left, then it was like, all right, business time. And so it was really funny to see everybody pull all of their popcorn and excess and whatever out after everybody was gone. That was kind of funny.
We had those too. Oh, you're right. It is because you're kind of like, are they gone? Is everybody gone?
Right.
And then it's like, oh God, I've been dying to crack this excess open. I'm dying. I have this perfect water, which a lot of the time, not going to lie, I would fill up with like regular water because those are expensive,
They
like
are.
Yeah,
crazy
it was
expensive
like
for
$24 or more for a pack of what, 6 or 8, which at Target you can get a whole $24 case for what, $3 maybe?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's $50 for 24 now.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
looking it up yesterday. Yeah, that's crazy. But you're right. The info session, you know what? I've never thought of that point before. I don't have a guest. Why the hell am I here? This is something that's extra daycare I didn't need to pay for, or maybe for you guys, just extra time that you could have been sleeping. Like, you're right. I've never for 1 second thought, like, why the hell was I here when I didn't have a guest? But you're right. It's very culty. I needed the brainwashing still.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. They like to keep you in the mix because as long as you're not thinking about what is wrong with everything, then the longer you'll stay.
Right.
Right.
They don't want critical thinkers.
Right.
They just
don't.
want robots, essentially. It's like, this is what the team is doing, this is what the organization is doing. You know, you want to go along with it. You want to be part of the team. You want to be all in. And towards the end of our journey on that, I did not want to be all in. I didn't want to. It was hard to, and we'll get into this later, to break the news to Becca that I'm like, listen, this is what I'm thinking and feeling, and we need to have the conversation about this. And they would also say stuff like, nobody has this when they would introduce like a new product. Nobody else has this. So, well, yes, in your mind, because you don't buy anything but Amway products.
Right. Yeah, I remember
But
specifically.
to the rest of the world.
Right. Yeah. This is already out. Yeah, there were a couple of products that we were like, okay, that's not true. So I had been working at Ulta just before, previously. I had like worked there for a while. So I was all into the makeup scene. And Benefit, which they do brow stuff, they had this little pot where it came with a little brow brush, and you could like dip it in the pot and you could do your brows. And Artistry came out with like the exact same thing. And I remember everybody in the group being like, oh, this is so brand new. Like nobody else has this. I'm like, literally they do. Like the exact same thing. I promise. This is not new. It's cool. I like it, but like it's not new. So don't say that it's new. And then Josh, you had a big beef with the muscle multiplier that came out.
Well, yeah. So it's like a pre-workout BCAA. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's basic chain amino acids, which gives you all the fundamentals for building muscle and pre-workout stuff.
They're good stuff.
Yeah. It was tasty and whatnot, but they're like, nobody else has this. Like, literally, the brand Aminos who started this has had this out for a couple of decades.
Yep. Yeah. And it's crazy that people would just take this. They would just take all of this info as if like, yeah, it is brand new. And it was just like information just kept getting cycled around and around. And it was like, it was truly cult-like.
Yeah. And again, that's showing that to like, I don't take anything at face value. Like, you can tell me something, oh, this is better. Well, why is it better? It just is. Well, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Did the math ever make sense to you guys? Like the way that they were presenting their income and what you guys are spending and the return of investment. Did any of that make sense?
That was Josh where you got really hung up.
Oh, on the whole, yes.
Yeah,
so,
what we were putting in. That was what
right.
you talking about getting out of Amway. Yeah. When you did the little presentation for me, that was the thing that you wrote on that giant whiteboard.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So I used it for that mainly. But yeah, it just didn't make sense. It's like, well, okay, if you get this many people in, and this qualifies you to this, and I'm like, okay, well, all right. And then your return on investment, the numbers aren't adding up for me because I'm going to have to put in a whole lot of money. Who's over under me is going to have to put a whole lot. There's no way you can get to this diamond status, this quote unquote easily. in 2.5 to 5 years, which is a big stretch of time. It's like you could do it in 2.5 years, or you could do it in 5 years, or you can be like some people being it with like 10 plus years and not have gotten even platinum yet.
Well, it's crazy too about the numbers. So, Josh, you talking about the like people making it out. So my dad is a CEO of like a multi-million-dollar company. He's done really well for himself and in the healthcare field and all of that. And so they've got a very nice house on like 11 acres of land. So, I mean, it's like the Beauty and the Beast staircase. They've got a whole sauna, a giant pool in the back, like is really nice. And I say that to say, I know what a nice house looks like. I know what that looks like. And so when we were at one of the conferences, after the conference, it was like, oh gosh, we're going to go to the coach's house and we're going to see, it's amazing. It's so amazing. They've got a huge house with a big swimming pool and everything. So I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And we get there and I look around and I'm like, I mean, my dad's house is bigger. So, not to like.
I love that so much. No, but it adds perspective. I had this other girl on, this couple, Ariel and Ksenia. They were in BWW, and Ksenia said the same thing. She was like, I expected so much more. She's like, but my parents' house is nicer than this. And it wasn't by any means a diamond, but it was somebody who was preaching that they were of big money, basically, because they were in Amway and trying to preach this message. And she's like, my parents have a nicer house. Because I think her parents are in some sort of corporate, I don't remember what they were, but they're like a big deal. Yeah. And she's like, I don't mean to sound privileged. And I'm like, right. No. That adds perspective though, because even me, like I thought this recently too. I was like, my dad, not by any means like he's not a CEO, but my dad's like worked the same job my entire life. He is a supervisor at his job. Like he has worked his way up. My dad came here not knowing any English. Like it's really cool to see where he's at. And he had a much nicer house than Robert. Robert was moving from apartment to apartment. And same with, I call them Jenny and Craig. Same with them. And even who would become my platinums. Like all these people are trying to preach to me that they're wealthy and that my dad's doing horribly. But why is my dad living a nicer lifestyle than they are? So I think your point is amazing because you're like, no, I know what actual, like, I'll say wealth. You know what wealth looks like and like how humbling it can be. And like, did they ever try to like tell you that like your parents, and I mean, maybe they didn't know what your parents did, but they ever try to say, oh, like your parents are miserable in their lives and this is why you need to build Amway?
Not exactly that.
Yeah, they didn't go quite that far. But they definitely insinuated.
Yeah, and they demonize, regular people jobs and just jobs in general that aren't being a diamond or a platinum or in the business. Mm-hmm. Because the coach would always have this whenever he would speak, say, hey, it's not the business that's making you tired, it's your job that's making you tired. Which,
yes.
Yeah. Got under my skin every time they said that.
Yep. Yeah, and they always tried to say,
you're right.
Like during the pitch, they would talk about pyramid schemes and debunking the whole pyramid thing. And they were like, look at your job. When you get all the employees and then you have middle managers and then you have upper management and then the CEO, what structure does that look like? Sure looks like a pyramid.
Well, okay.
And it's like,
the thing with that is we're getting a salary.
Right. We're actually getting paid for what we do.
And we're getting health benefits.
Right.
We're not getting any of that through this wonderful business that we've been presented. We get none of that. Our job is not dependent on making sales to clients or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right, that's not what you signed up for.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a salesperson. It felt so sleazy too.
Oh yeah.
When you're just like, because they're like, oh yeah, well, girls particularly, you find something great that you love and you chat with people about it, and it's like, yeah, I do that now. Now it feels even worse to do that though. So I'm like, okay. Even now, like not even in Amway, I'm like, okay, I have to really like watch myself because I'll start to do that. And I'm like, you make your own decision. Do what you want. I don't care. It's just great. I like it. But yeah.
Right, exactly. Wow. I love that they didn't do that because they definitely they dogged on my dad all the time. I mean, my dad and actually Jessica's dad, her dad worked for the same company once the companies merged. And she was like, yeah, my dad retired and he's got all, actually retired and has I think, I don't know if it was a pension or 401k, but he has a retirement from his job. My dad has the same thing that he will eventually have. My dad's like half of our dad's age, which is really funny. But we talk about the fact that our dads worked at the same company and that they really heavily criticized it. And she's like, I really think my dad is what is successful. I was like, I think what your dad did is successful too. Success is different for everybody. And the fact that they would put one thing as success, reaching the diamond level, but it's like, how many of the people who were preaching this to us were actually diamonds? Not very many. I mean, there's a reason why only 1% of people go diamond and maybe less than 5% go platinum. Like you were talking about, those people who've been in for 10 years twiddle, like they say they twiddle their thumbs and they go nowhere. That's my sponsor. My sponsor is going on 10 years in the business and hasn't even broke what we would call an eagle ship, or for you guys, an arrow, right? And Jenny and Craig, same thing. They haven't even gone platinum yet. These are things that I look at now and I'm like, why was I ever supposed to believe them or have this trust for them? Because they couldn't do it. They can't do it. So why am I supposed to believe that I can? And the amount of money that's going into this. And now that you guys are having this realization and he pitches to you now, this isn't a great thing. From what I think you guys told me before is that, Josh, you had checked out a little bit more than you did, Rebecca. Is that right? That he was more like, I'm done, and you still kind of want to stay around?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, what's funny is after Josh gave the whole pitch of like, we're losing money. Can't you see that? I could tell he was fired up he's very passionate.
Yeah, I was very passionate, but I didn't want to cross the line of being like mean or whatever.
Which I appreciate because I was still brainwashed. But the only reason that we ended up leaving, or that I agreed, I guess, to leave, is because they preached so much that the wives follow the husband's lead. And that was a principle that we believed in before, but there it was like toxic in a way. It was like, truly be quiet, don't have a say. And I have a big personality. I'm a redhead. I have a temper. All of these things. There's a lot going on. And so that was really hard for me. Oh my gosh, that was really hard to like feel pushed down. Like I was too much, I guess. And that was difficult. But anyway, so I went along and I was like, well, I trust Josh. I trust that he's going to lead our family where we need to go. And thank God I did. It took a long time of detoxing, but I am so glad that we left, man.
Wow. I love that. What's funny is you use that term, lead your family. And I'm sure that's a term maybe you guys had heard before since you guys are Christians and probably go to church. And that's a term. For me, that's a term I heard from Worldwide. That was something that they would always say, that the man's going to lead the family. And I'm like you, I have a big personality. Like my dad always says, like, no one's going to tell me what to do. So I have to find somebody who's either like tough enough. He'll say, yeah, they got to be tough enough to tell you what to do, or they're just going to bow down to you. And I'm like, oh no. But thankfully my partner, he's the one who puts me into place. But like, it's just interesting that they have that perspective. And that's something that I hadn't been against. I was, my dad and my stepmom are really my examples of parents. They are, my dad is considered I guess the leader of the family, and my stepmom has a say. She grew up LDS. She is no longer, but that's an idea that she's always had as well. And it was never toxic. So it was something that I didn't look at as a bad thing. But same thing in Worldwide, in these LOAs, it is bad. It is so bad because they're preaching such toxic messages to women to be submissive to their husbands. One common theme that I'm finding, which honest to God breaks my heart to say, is that these organizations are all really blurring the lines of consent for women, that we don't have a say or a choice in anything for our body, and that we have to just do what the husband says. And that for me is I agree. I like that's a line you just don't cross. And I think a lot of the times they would also preach it in like they would cherry pick, in my opinion. I don't know the Bible. You guys probably know better than me, but I feel like they would kind of cherry pick lines to make these things make sense. And as people of faith, what were you guys seeing that they were pushing religiously? And were you guys kind of in agreement with that? And maybe do you have a different view now that you're out?
Becca, you want to take the lead on that one?
Yeah, I can. I mean, the biggest one, there were lots of things that we saw, but one of the biggest ones was the whole husband and wife dynamic, and that the woman is to be submissive and quiet, basically. Not that you can't speak, but you let your husband do a lot of that for you. And that, yeah, like we were talking about, it takes it to a whole new level. And I still believe that, like, yeah, I still believe that Josh is like our spiritual head of the family, and to lead in that way. That's still true. And it did teach me, I will say there were some good things that came out of it, because it did teach me a lot about myself and a lot about our relationship and how we handle things. But one of the things that stood out in particular, maybe not what they were teaching, but how they structured things. It felt very much like a church service, particularly those conferences, which felt, of course, very comfortable for us as people of faith. So we came in, there was singing, there was this music group that came out.
Cover band, I would say so.
Yeah, and they sang a version of, it's probably the same one for all of them. But it was that I get knocked down, get up again. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
the Diamond Way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, my God, yes. Were they called Next Level for you guys?
No, they were called Day One. Day One is what they were called.
Yeah. Ours was called Next Level. Dang.
Yep.
Also thing.
But yeah, it was like a rock concert, because people would be lifted up and crowd surfing, and like, what is this?
It's wild. Yeah. So there was the music, and then the talks, which felt a lot like, you're preaching, that kind of a thing. So it felt very much like that. And then even on Sundays,
the non-denominational church service,
they would literally have a church service, which was like, oh, that's nice. At least for us, it felt nice. But getting out, we realized, wow, that's very much a ploy to make us feel like it's safe and it's connected. And I don't know, maybe I'm just too nice, but like, to give a lot of these like leadership the benefit of the doubt, are they doing this intentionally? Or is this just kind of like the way things have been set up, and it's comfortable, and it's like been passed down for so long? Or is someone like, yes, how can we manipulate these people into being comfortable? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I wonder.
Question. I asked that too, is like, where does brainwashing start and responsibility begin? Because like where does one start and end, and where does this one start and end? Because it is very challenging. And I do think that there are people who joined these organizations with the best of intentions. I do think maybe and I would imagine it's money that drives them. I mean, hey, a lot of us would do some crazy things for money if we're in desperation. I have 2 children. If I was in desperation, I don't know what I would do that is immoral to feed my kids, if that's like 100% necessary. But thankfully, we're not in a position to do that. But like, it always makes me wonder, like, what were these people like beforehand? And at what point did they kind of fall into this trap and they just turn a blind eye and they stay? Or they're so heavily brainwashed that they believe what they're doing is good? Or I do believe that there are some people in these organizations who do have that level of manipulation. And the only reason I say that is because of how many different stories I've heard. Like I always have to be the one to like break someone's like heart when they're like, oh, I wanted to believe this about someone. And I'm like, well, let me tell you what screenshots we got about this person. Like we have a couple of Canadian leaders that created the process. So I'm sure you guys have heard of that couple. We call them Dawn and Mary here, but they're like a Canadian couple who created the process, and then they kind of spread it around. But they pretend to be, I don't want to say, I'll say pretend. They basically put off this facade that they are these very philanthropic people. They saved a woman from overseas of her lifestyle and brought her in to be their maid or nanny or some level of work within their home. They had, according to screenshots, so of course this is all alleged, but I do believe it. They had a double eagle ruby fall off. He is now exiled from worldwide as a whole. And that's a whole platinum leg that he lost. So allegedly, he was buying the difference in PV to keep that leg alive for their qualification. And he was putting it in that woman's name in their home. And in my understanding, that is not, that is allegedly fraud. And that kind of led to questions of, well, what are they really doing with all of these different things, which again is always so sad for me to have to tell people. But it does kind of add to that question of, okay, I do think some people are in this business and they are manipulative and they're not great people.
Yeah. That, when you said that, that reminds me of something that was said on stage at one of the conferences. It was talking about like how URA got started, and it was basically because the top diamonds that were there, they saw what was going on. I think was it Brit Worldwide or Worldwide Dream Builder? It was one of those that they were a part of, and then they saw what was going on behind the scenes, I guess, in all the diamond rooms and everything, and they were like, "Oh, I don't agree with this. This is not great." And so they split off and created Our Association.
But yet, same exact thing.
And yet the setup is very, very similar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I heard the same about LTD the other day, actually. And I was like, do you know how LTD got started? And same story. Yeah, we didn't, the Diamonds didn't like what was going on in Brit Worldwide. And they broke off and created leadership team development. And I was like, the true irony, because they're preaching the similar concept as Brit Worldwide. And I think with Worldwide Dream Builders, they never spoke ill of Brit Worldwide. They were purely just like, they loved them.
Interesting. I wonder what the real reason is that they broke away. Like, is that the real reason? Or if like secretly it was like, well, but we could make more money on tools if it was our tools. Rather than somebody else's. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe it was a little bit of the other reason, but mostly
the tools reason.
The money. Yeah.
Because that's where the money is, the tools.
It is. They're expensive.
Yeah.
So now it begs the question, did they ever tell you guys that that's where they were allegedly making money? From the tools and speaking.
I suspected that they never told us.
Yeah, they never said anything about all of that, but it makes total sense. I mean, where's that money going?
Yeah,
it's going somewhere. It's like $90 a month or something ridiculous.
Because the app was like $50 a month.
Yeah, there were 2 apps I think that we were doing. Is that right?
I thought it was just one, like one of those other things, because the voice messages, it was all in one app, I think.
Got it. I thought it was more expensive. I thought it was more like 80, maybe 85.
Oh, yeah, because we had
the base plan was 50, but
no,
premium.
No. Base plan was 30, and then premium was like 50. And so you want the diamond subscription. That someone was like $80, $90 a month.
We did that one, right? We did the diamond.
Foolishly, yes, we did. Because they also said, oh yeah, and you get 10% off in the diamond store when you go to conferences and you buy the URA merch. And
we had so much of that too.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And the books.
Burned all mine, yeah.
So many books. I still have some that I'm still pulling out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I found The One Thing the other day. I still have the book, The Secret, which by no means was a worldwide recommended book, but it's a similar concept. So I found it at Goodwill and I was like, hey, and then I redonated it. But Love and Respect was one that I had to buy, but I just redonated it. Funny story. I hope whoever finds the workbook and actually buys it. I put a sticky note with my podcast in it, and I was like, I don't know who recommended you this book, but listen to this before you read the book.
That's wonderful. Wow.
Great,
that's awesome.
Great marketing. Maybe we should go into Walmart and all the animated movies. Maybe we should put a sticky note.
Josh.
Listen to her perspective on this.
Yeah.
No, it's like it was really funny, but I really like I think about all of these different things, right? Where it's like from beginning to end, you're really fired up and excited because you're taught about this opportunity that is for mentorship. This is supposed to be a good thing, and you fall almost in love with the organization. Through time, you start to see the red flags, and by the end, you're like, oh. Holy cow, what the hell was I in? And did you guys like do you guys consider the fact that you were in a cult? Like do you guys consider it a cult or did you guys immediately think that or did it take you some time to process the fact that you're like, "Oh, that was that."
Me 100% right off of that after we had gotten out. Totally 100% cult.
Yeah, you started listening to podcasts and reading articles. And
Well, I mean, Zay and Melody on their YouTube when they were doing anti-Anilujah, anti-Amway stuff, that's what really got me thinking. And I started listening to, people like Roberta Blevins and others who
the anti-bot, right?
Yeah, the anti-bot. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and so I did not have that experience. Josh would like listen to these things when I was like in the room or we were driving somewhere, and I listened to listen.
I was trying to brainwash you.
I know, I know. You were trying to like subtly, but also not subtly, like this is what was really happening. And little by little, as we continued to listen to these different YouTube videos and podcasts and things, it finally started to click like, oh my gosh, yes, that is what happened. And it was wild. It took me a good 6 months, I think, to detox really from everything. It was a long time, but that set us on the course for being really interested in cults in general. All of a sudden it popped up to be like, well, what are other cults doing? This is very, I don't know. It's kind of,
that's why whenever like those documentaries about cults, I'm like, we need to watch this one.
Oh, I know. Every time a new one comes out, we're like, yeah, let's watch it.
Right, exactly. Same. I mean, I've always loved true crime, although there was one episode that messed me up and I've been on a break ever since. But the cult stuff is pretty good. I love the cult stuff. And I mean, it still gets pretty dark, but there's just something about having been in and again, we're speaking on personal opinions here, an alleged cult. That makes you kind of see things different because you watch them and you're like, oh my God, no, that was the same. Like when I'm watching The Vow, I'm like, no way. Like this whole structure of things is so similar to Worldwide Dream Builders, LTD, URA. Like, and there's no saying how many other organizations are out there very similar to this. One that I know of, oh gosh, I don't remember what it was called. The Forum. Landmark Forum. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that one. I actually got one of my downline from being invited to one of those things. The guy had just gotten done with it. And I was like, hey, so I actually know something better than this. And he would eventually become my downline. I'm so sorry to that guy, which I have apologized since. But now that you guys are out and looking back, do you guys laugh a little bit and you're just kind of like, oh man.
We do now.
Yeah, we do now.
For a while, Josh, you were really upset. You're like, nothing good ever came out of this. And I tried to find the silver lining. I was like, well, I mean, those self-help books were good. We did learn about business and it was good to keep up with the reading thing,
Yeah, and like delayed gratification and all that.
Yeah, so there were some good concepts.
Yeah, when these things are applied outside of the business,
right?
Then they're I think they're some things are helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. I love the silver lining thing. I try to do that. I promise. It just gets harder and harder. Every story I hear, I'm like, oh God, it pains me. But that's amazing. And so you guys are how many years out now?
So we left in October of 2018, which, just a quick aside, we actually spent our first anniversary at a conference.
Yep.
Yeah. But we ate at a local nice seafood place, so
yeah, that was good. And we had our own hotel room. And we flew instead of drove.
Yes. So
it's great. Luxury.
I wanted to have like something nice, and they were still saying, oh, well, we have an extra hotel. You can stay with this couple. I'm like, no, we're fine. We got our own room. It's fine. Because the thing is, like, if you're isolated, you start to think. They don't want that.
Right. They want you to be tired. They want you to not think about things.
Yeah, I think, what was it? On Sundays after the church service, they did like, they brought different people up on stage who like hit like new milestones. And
Yeah, they did.
I know we didn't go to that, and I don't think we even went to the church service that Sunday. And
That last conference we went to.
The last conference.
No, I think we left early. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm. Because because we had a flight to catch. So
yeah,
Crazy. Wow. And this always sounds like a prison question, but like, how long were you guys in for?
8 months. So it's from February of 2018 to October 2018.
Yep.
Wow. All of this happened in a total of 8 months.
It was a lot, yeah.
Wow. And that speaks volumes to how toxic these organizations can be, that, the brainwashing can happen so quickly. But I do have to say, shout out for you guys getting out so soon, because, man, it does take a number on you. And I think that even though you guys spent 8 months, it is still a traumatizing experience. And being out now, what does your life look like? Like, what are some things that you guys are doing? I mean, obviously your podcast, but what are some things you guys are doing now that you're more proud of than you ever were?
Yeah.
So one thing that people don't know about, unless they were in it for the couple of months we were doing it, they was like, well, if we're not doing Amway, we got to do something. We're not going to do URA. We got to do something. And we'll do something creative. So we embarked on a lifestyle vlog channel that we did for a couple months, 2 to 3 months.
I think we posted like 2 videos.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, when you're a lifestyle vlogger or whatever, you have to be constantly on.
It's constant, yeah.
All the time. Whereas a podcast, you just come in and you don't have to be on all the time. You can just, you come in there for that hour, 2 hours, and then you're done. And you don't have to keep documenting, every bite you take or every step you take throughout your day. So we did that for about 2 to 3 months, kind of fell to the wayside. And then we actually got the idea for our podcast after we purchased our first home about a year later.
Yeah. We bought our first home. We moved in like the week of Christmas 2019. Not, what, 2 to 3 months later, pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I was like, woo, we got in really good timing with this house. Could you imagine working from home in a teeny tiny apartment?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So yeah, it was good timing. It was very good timing.
Well, we just had more time with each other, getting adequate sleep.
Although recently, not so much. This past summer, Josh went back to school for like a boot camp kind of thing to be a data analyst.
Yes.
Which is really exciting. And at the same time,
very exciting.
Yes. At the same time, I started my master's program for counseling.
Yeah. For those of you
10 out of 10 would not recommend.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 not recommend.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Not at the same time.
Either one of you are in school,
right.
But no, both of you are in school at the same time.
Yeah, that was really hard because I wanted so much to support Josh and what he was doing, but I was so spent on what I was doing and I needed his support and he couldn't give me the support that I needed. And it was rough. So yeah, don't do that.
So both going to school.
Yep.
Pursuing careers.
Right.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just spending more time, with our dogs and more time with family. If we go on vacations or go to conferences, it's actually stuff that we want to go to, like Comic-Cons or going to see family, going to Florida, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We went to our first ever Comic-Con this past June.
Yes.
Which was really exciting in the Nashville area. It was their second year having a Comic-Con. So we were like, yay, There's a Comic-Con in our area. It's really exciting. It was fun.
That's awesome. I'm like really still so brand new to this whole world of what that is. Cause my significant other, that's him. He's very interested. Like he's always been into anime and the video games and the lore of things. And I had friends too back in the day who also were, and they would always talk about something called Comic-Con. I'm like, what in the world is that? They're like, oh, it's a convention. I'm like, okay. Never really got a clear understanding of what it was. And now my significant other's like, I want to cosplay. I'm like, I know what that is. I saw that online once. And so, like, learning about it, I do now think it would be really cool to attend something like this and really get to see all of the people who are so like dedicated to their cosplays, which, oh my God, people are dedicated.
Yes.
The amount of money and time and effort that they go through. One guy that I went to high school with, I saw recently from a distance, he not only opened a restaurant that is, I think, like a medieval type theme, but he also has a podcast where he spoke to two of the characters from Lord of the Rings as well. And I saw this recently and I was like, I remember him being very, very big into cosplay and how he's grown it to be something exciting. So it's like from a distance, I'm like, yo, that's dope. Like, good for you. I'm really excited that that happened. But the fact that you guys have the time to do that, you guys have the time. I mean, maybe not with school, but you guys have the opportunity now to live. I mean, what I would imagine is actual freedom, doing what you guys actually want to do instead of what Amway wanted you to do.
Oh, 100%. All of that was such false. It was so materialistic. And we are, of course, who doesn't love things? But like, we don't care about the big house and the like all of the just stuff. And like it's crazy some of the things that we would hear about people doing, like people who are realtors taking a huge group of people to a multi-million-dollar home, and they would like just go and look around and have lunch. And what was it, like dream building dates or something?
I did that.
Oh, yeah. Gosh. That kind of reminds me of when we were looking at houses. Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay, so quick aside, choose to leave this in or not. But we went to a what do they call them? Developer of these houses. I'll disguise the name, or I'll make it backwards. It was GLI.
I know what you're talking about.
And so GLI, when you go and you're interested in a house, they take you into this like big area. It's like a board meeting, and they have like little tables and chairs, and they're like, okay, well, what are you looking for? It's like, what's your dream house? And they take you all these different houses. Well, the house that we were looking for, we wanted at least 2,000 or more square footage, just because we wanted, our own office and, big space to have people over and all that. And they did like a progression for us. They like showed us like smaller houses, and like the next one was up and up. Something that was funny is like they showed us like one of the smaller houses, and another guy
it was like the most basic finishes, no granite, all like laminate, stuff like that.
And so there's another realtor, another seller or sales guy showing another family at the time, and he's like, "Oh, you guys can have this house; it's already sold." And we look at each other like, "Well, good, because this one's shitty.
It's not for us." Yeah, what was so weird about going through their process was it was incredibly similar
like Amway,
to Amway. We were like, we've done this before, but it was the whole dream building of what are you going to look like in your house, and you don't want to keep paying rent because that's just throwing away money. You could own your own house.
Right. And we had brought some sandwiches with us. I'm like, oh, well, how about you have like your sandwiches in the house and kind of just like dream about what it would be like here.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so wild. That did not go well. We didn't end up, we backed out of that deal. Thankfully, they gave us our money back.
Yes.
And we went with another builder. But crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Now I have to be on like alert because we're now kind of in that conversation of, okay, we think we're going to start looking in the near future. Like that kind of speaks to me about like you were talking about, they tell us not to buy houses. And I feel like because of how long I was in Amway and how much money I threw away in Amway, like I'm out for 5 years and I'm just now having that conversation of buying a house. And I love the conversation of being able to do it, but now like watch out. Cause like, I'm not trying to do all of that. That'd be triggering. I'd be like, I've seen this before. I gotta go. But that's really, really exciting. So you guys have a house, you're building your dream careers. You guys have this podcast that you guys do, which is really, really cool. And life just seems like it's going so much better for you guys. If you guys were to leave the people with anything at all, like some final thoughts about life, like in Amway and being out, and advice, if you will.
I think my personal advice is kind of what we talked about at the very beginning with counseling. Seriously, these counselors, they won't judge you. That's literally what they are trained to do. And I can say that because I'm going through the training right now. You do what you need to do, build up that rapport. They'll help you sort out the mess that organizations like this leave you with. And I just can't speak enough to good mental health and self-care. I'm actually writing a paper right now about self-care. And how important it is, and this like weird paradox of counselors know that how important and good it is to do self-care, and yet we don't do it in our own lives. It's like, how does this anyway? But yeah, it's super important to, if you need help to talk through some of this stuff with people, and you bring in spirituality, whatever spirituality that is. They're trained to handle these types of things. Most counselors are in a very ethical way. So there's a code of ethics that counselors learn, and they live by this code of ethics. And so it's so great. I can't speak highly enough of it for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and kind of what I said previously was, always be skeptical. Don't take anything at, well, okay. Let me back
Maybe
up.
do research.
Yeah. Do research. Don't take anything at face value. Always get all the facts first. And sometimes that is personal testimonies of other people. But yeah, always do your research. Never go into anything blindly, because it'll come back to you.
Yeah. And then you'll end up on an episode like this talking about your trauma from
Yep.
Amway, or we talk about all kinds of traumas. So I'm really grateful that you guys were so open to come on and talking about your experience with Amway, and really just kind of getting vulnerable too about, your guys' communication and how you guys did go through your hardships, and really getting to see what it looks like to really thrive after leaving, because thriving after leaving, I think, is the most important part, that you can be in an organization like Amway and you can leave and find help, and then you can also find life afterwards. So thank you guys so much. Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to follow us, we're at Anilujah Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and we also have Anilujah.com, our website, where you can email us, and we have a blog on there. We also have our YouTube channel, same handle, at Anilujah Podcast, so you can keep up with that. We do an episode every Friday, and we're the biggest on Instagram. That's where we're most active.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. You guys can find me at exesandT.podcast. If you guys want to share a story, please email me, DANI, my name, Danny, hi, at exesandT.com. You're still welcome to DM me on Instagram. You guys can find me, TikTok, everywhere else on the same handle, and wherever podcasts are heard. So thank you guys again so much, and I'm really excited. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.